So today we're going to be going full Cage in celebration of his massive talent.
It's massive. It's massive.
Massive.
Yeah. Doesn't fit on the screen.
No. We're going to be looking back at his best and worst films. His recent, very honest Ask Me Anything session. Let's do Cage then. Come on. We've got a lot of Cage to get
Cage.
In celebration of Cage, I put together a list. It's a random Kaz made up list, but it splits Cage's entire life into a series of eras. I've got
different ages of Cage. That's what you should have gone with, Kaz.
It should, yeah, different ages of Cage. I like that. Yeah, there's six ages of Cage.
There we go.
We've got early Cage, action Cage, serious Cage, silly Cage, DTV Cage, and Cage Unleashed. They're roughly chronological. There's a bit of overlap, and what's interesting about them is that two things I found. Firstly, there's at least one good movie in every era, and the eras are only like five years or so. So they're not huge eras. And his last Cage Unleashed era seems to be by far the best of all of his eras, even though some of people's favorites will probably be fairly early in the list. But let's take a look.
Let's dive in. Take us through it.
Okay.
Take us through it, Kaz.
So early Cage, which is late 80s to mid 90s.
Yeah.
I've put down Rumblefish, Raising Arizona, Wild at Heart, Wings of the Apache, also known as Firebirds, Red Rock West, and the pinnacle for him in that early era, Leaving Las Vegas, which got him the Oscar, I think.
It did, yes.
Yes.
Got him a lot of recognition.
Yes. So that was
no Peggy Sue got married though.
I mean, I haven't included all of his films. He's done like 500 films. So I could
500 films?
No, he hasn't. He hasn't.
I mean, he could have done 500 films. It's not that much of an exaggeration.
No, he could
looking
have
at his IMDb page.
Certainly in his DTV era. But no, I just picked like half a dozen from each era. But yes. Yes,
this is when he was serious and wanted to be a contender as such, wasn't it? He wanted to be as a trying to get out of the shadow of the Coppola family.
Yes, because I guess there's some nepotism there. There's got to be some, starting off.
But you say that, but didn't he actually change his name from Coppola to Cage to avoid nepotism?
To avoid that, yeah.
So fair play.
Sure. He did try and avoid it, but there's got to be some way in, doesn't there?
Well,
do you know anyone who could maybe get me a...
Oi, Uncle Francis. Got any work experience going this summer?
Could have had a worse starting point from an acting, but he did give his all.
Absolutely.
I think what's most interesting about early Cage is it was probably his most eclectic. He was all over the shop here. I mean, Raising Arizona is one of my favorite comedies of all time. Yeah. It's geez, and he is a purely comedic creation. H.I. and it's just a wonderful comedic performance. But then, like you say, you start off with Rumblefish. You've got your Wild at Heart as well, which is a really crazy. Well, obviously it's Lynch, isn't it? So it's a crazy concoction with dark humor, with insane intensity. You've got things like, I know you've not got it on the list, but Vampire's Kiss, where he's eating cockroaches for shits and giggles. He's all over the shop here, and I think it's because he's trying to find his niche.
He's got Wings of the Apache, where he's trying to get some Top Gun glory in there.
So I think it's a great period, but it's for me he's finding himself in that.
Yes, I mean it is.
Well, we're finding him, I should say. He probably knew exactly what he was doing and who he was. We're sort of being introduced to the different ranges of Cage.
Yes, ranges of Cage, ages of Cage. What's going on? What's your favourite, Simon, from that era?
From that era?
Yes.
I would have to say the failed Superman film that never got made.
Nice. That would have really made it a colourful era. That would have really
been something, wouldn't it?
Did they make a documentary about that? Kevin Smith has been talking about this. I haven't seen. I would love to see that documentary.
It exists. I've seen it. You can find it on. I'm not sure if you can get it on YouTube now. It used to be, but if you dive deep into the web, you can find it.
Nice.
And it's incredible actually how far along they got before it was actually cancelled. Quite incredible that that suit was the thing. But Cage was there, and he I don't know how would he have made a decent Superman?
No.
It's difficult, isn't it? I mean, he would have given a magnificent performance because he always does, but it wouldn't have quite been the Clark Kent Superman that you would come to expect from the comics. It would have been just a little bit.
Tell. I think
there have been some choices. There have been some choices made.
Hard to look back on now, because I would say he closed out this era with. I mean, I wrote it down that way, but he closed it out with Leaving Las Vegas.
Yeah,
they gave him the Oscar. He put in a tremendous performance. I wonder whether Nicolas Cage, after a few more of these eras, would have still stood a chance, because he followed up Leaving Las Vegas, winning the Oscar, with getting super ripped, getting a dirty white vest on, and doing Con Air. I mean, it was an insane
growing that
choice
hair
for him. Yeah, if you remember Cage in his early films, I mean, even when he's doing kind of, in inverted commas, action in Wings of the Apache, I mean, he's a pretty skinny, slight guy, and he is absolutely. I mean, he's properly ripped when he turns up for Con Air. And I think I don't know. I think it's interesting that he shifts so wildly to do that. I mean, they spend a lot of time focusing on him being super muscly Cage. I mean, it's utter nonsense, isn't it? But it's
well, it is. But do you know what? And bear with me on this. It's what Feige did with the MCU. Look what Bruckheimer did. With by picking Cage, who at that time was not an action star, and he said, "You know what? We've got these insane action films. We want a good actor because we're going to focus on, in amongst all the stuff blown up.
Yes,
we want that character." And so suddenly you pick Cage, and no Cage in those Bruckheimer films, you get no Downey Jr. and Iron Man. Yes. I am telling you, I think that is the genius of what Bruckheimer did there by picking him. And like I say, it could have been one and done, but no, and it kept going and it kept going, and there were more and more and more, and that little oeuvre is utterly spectacular.
I think his action era is. I mean, Tom has actually put in his favorites from each era. We only just clocked it now, but he picked Leaving Las Vegas from the early era. But from this era, he's inexplicably picked Con Air. I mean, I can understand that because it's crazy good fun. But the whole era's pretty intoxicating. I mean, it's Con Air. I put down Con Air, Face Off, Gone in 60 Seconds, Wind Talkers, and my choice was The Rock. And it was a tough call between that and Mark's choice, Face Off, because it's a tremendous era of just action films. He does a couple of Woos. He does 3 Bruckheimers. I mean, he's having a lot of fun out there.
Absolutely,
he is. But again, and here's another hot take. It's not allow me to have a hot take. Hot take here. The best of those starts to show, I think, where Cage is best. Cage works best with a partner. He works best with a double act.
Yes, so I agree.
Con Air, I'd argue that you don't go to Con Air for Nicolas Cage. He's there and he's great. But you go to Con Air for Steve Buscemi, John Malkovich, Danny Trejo. Hell, even John Cusack in that amazing suit. Similarly, he is amazing in The Rock. I'd argue sticking with anyone other than Connery, and it is not the classic. The same with Face Off. You sticking with anyone other than Travolta, and half the fun in Face Off, and I'll give you this, half the fun is spotting the cracks where Travolta's Cage impression falls down and where Cage's Travolta impression falls down. And eventually your mind just gives up because you can't keep track of it all. And it's brilliant. But they work, the best ones for me there work when he is not the single sole focus. He's not the movie star tentpole lead of the film. And for me, that's something, as you go through the later ages of Cage's, his best movies are where he is part of an ensemble, or he is a supporting actor in it. So that's my view here.
I like that. I like that theory. I would say I'm going to say that's part of the reason why I picked The Rock over Face Off. I absolutely love Face Off, but if I'm picking a Nicolas Cage movie from this era, Nicolas Cage and The Rock. I rewatched it again in advance of this podcast. He has some crazy lines, just normal lines that he's having sex with his girlfriend. He's in the middle of it, and he gets a phone call to go and stop some nerve agent, and he's sitting there going, "This is not happening," and then he's like, "This is not happening." And it's only Nicolas Cage. Only Nicolas Cage could make that work. He's got all these terrible lines that you can tell from other, Michael Bay movies that they clearly don't work in other people's mouths. But he's having a ball talking about Franciscan monks and creating champagne. Voila.
It's his pronunciation of the word a-hole. That's the one where you go, oh yes, he's serious now.
He has such a ball in that I had to give it to that as his performance. But in Face Off, which I love as well, I actually love Travolta as Cage. So it's almost not as much a Nicolas Cage movie for me, because Travolta doing his best impression of Cage is one of Travolta's best performances. It's like, because you're sitting there going, yeah, that's everything I love about Nicolas Cage right there.
Yeah, it's great. But even Gone in 60 Seconds, which, I watched at the time and it was all disappointing because, again, part of the double act there, it was him and Angelina Jolie. And he was playing it far too straight. He was you could see he was trying to be much more Mr. Mainstream action man in that. But again, I watched it a year ago for the first time since seeing it in the cinema, and there's just something so off about Cage in some of these that's just brilliant. Yes. That just and it's the fact that it's like the uncanny, isn't it? People talk about the uncanny, that thing which is 99% normal but is 1% not quite right. That's Nicolas Cage in almost every film, but it's brilliant, and it's that he brings to it.
Yes, he certainly does, and he switched from that to serious. So he went from early Cage, which was a blend of everything, to action Cage, proper ripped, and then he went to serious Cage. And for the serious list, we've got 8mm, Captain Corelli's Mandolin, Adaptation, Matchstick Men, Lord of War, World Trade Center, and Bringing Out the Dead, which was Tom Strips.
What about Snake Eyes? Would you stick Snake Eyes, because that's borderline silly Cage, isn't it?
Why do I not have Snake Eyes in this list? I'm gonna put Snake Eyes in the serious list.
Nice live adaptation.
I am, because Snake Eyes for me would probably top Bringing Out the Dead. I have a lot of fun with Snake Eyes.
Yes, yeah. But even so, I'd argue that there's not a film in there that sticks in the memory like some of his action stuff. They are. I don't know. I don't even like Adaptation. I'll be honest. I'm not a fan of Adaptation there.
Out of the ones on here without Snake Eyes, which I recently rewatched, which was great. The one I most want another rewatch of is Matchstick Men. I think it's a small little crime drama, but he plays it.
It was him and Rockwell, wasn't it? It's Ridley Scott, isn't it? Yeah.
He plays it proper wild within the constraints of it. I think of all of those, I think it's the unsung hero. Adaptation obviously got a lot of pundits, and it's. I think they liked it, but
I think for me the thing with Adaptation is you almost got it was two Charlie Kaufman rather than and it was almost like Cage met his match in the out there stakes, and it was just like it was like my mind couldn't compute what's going on. Kaufman, Cage, there's two Kaufmans, there's two Cages. Oh my god!
Yes,
I don't think so.
You can see how playing against himself wasn't working for him.
Yeah, I might need to give that one another go. But yeah, certainly. You have to look at World Trade Center in there, and he he's taken a different turn there. Worthier films, less fun films, less fun Cage. Boo.
Are you gonna make an argument for 8mm, Simon?
No.
I didn't think so. Bring Out the Dead, though, I reckon.
Lord of War's okay.
I haven't seen Bringing Out the Dead for a good while. I need to give that another go.
Yeah. I reckon Simon is going to be all over the Silly Cage.
Silly Cage.
Simon is a Silly Cage advocate, I reckon.
Because it's got his favourite film of all in there, Drive Angry.
Drive Angry. That was 3D, wasn't it?
Yes, it was 3D. I reread your review.
You remember when we did all those 3D discs? Or I did. My God.
Drive Angry had tyres flying at your face. Yes. So Silly Cage was like late 2000s, early 2010s. I think I stretched the era, but you've got a couple of Ghost Riders in there. You've got a couple of National Treasures in there. I mean, he'd started doing sequels by this time. I put Next to Knowing together. Because one's good and one's not. But,
yes,
but they're both these premonition kind of thingies.
Yeah.
And for a good long time, I got them confused, not because one wasn't much better than the other, but because for some reason Cage had done two premonition movies quite close together and given them one-word titles. He also did Drive Angry, which was thoroughly stupid.
It was mental.
I mean, I have to say, it wasn't...
What a film.
Yeah, it wasn't an unpleasurable
Thoroughly entertaining. Yeah, it's not.
It was literally
not a car crash. I like it.
I was going to say, watch that now in these rarefied times. Who's the weirdo, Nick Cage or Amber Heard? You just don't know.
Yep. Yes. Yes.
Anyway, bit of political left the kids. Bit of political.
He did also do Kick-Ass. Which brings me actually to his Ask Me Anything, because on his Ask Me Anything they asked him who he was most inspired by in his portrayal of Big Daddy. Was it Big Daddy? In the character. And he said it was the classic Adam West Batman. And he said that he said to Adam West he was channeling Adam West's Batman in this portrayal. And Adam West said to him, "You were trying to." which I thought was tremendous.
Brilliant.
Yeah. It's actually, he did this Ask Me Anything, and I think it's changed. I mean, it's been a whole immeasurable amount of good press for him, because in an age when, a lot of actors are assholes. And they're being like public assholes, and they're thinking they're still going to get movies and not have their sequel to Bright cancelled. I mean, it happens to a lot of big people, and Nicolas Cage turns up. Famously, he's very quiet on social, and he turns up and does this Ask Me Anything, and people send in messages, and he was really, really nice, talking about, I think someone said to him he was once regarded as being one of the very few actors who brought something different to the acting scene. And he turned it around and said, "These are the 5 people who inspired me. So I appreciate what you're saying, but actually, these are the people who brought something different to the scene. I just tried my best to learn from them." I mean, every question that tried to show he might have a big ego, he turned it around and showed he was actually a really nice guy.
Yeah, but again, and I think the thing with Cage is you see it all the way through. He's never had an ego in any of his films. You all the way through, and I think that's possibly now why we're seeing. I agree with you, Kaz. I think his most interesting age is now. Might not be his best age, but I like some of the stuff he is putting out certainly in the last sort of 5 or 6 years. I think we're getting a higher hit rate. And granted, for a minute there, we thought it was going all Willis, didn't we?
We're coming to DTV.
Have film camera, will work for food kind of thing, especially with those crazy stories about his insane spending. And he was dropping millions of pounds on buying a planet 20 galaxies away or something stupid like that. But the thing is, and this was the difference, I think, whatever the dreck he was in, he was always Cage. He was
always good.
And he was always on. Whatever version of on was needed, he was always on. And I think we're seeing it now, and the AMA I think confirmed it. He's just him, and that eccentricity that comes through in his performances that we all really like. It's just him, and it's brilliant. And we like the fact that here's someone who can be eccentric and brilliantly eccentric, as opposed to the normal people who are eccentric and it's an affectation, or they're eccentrically a dick.
Yeah,
and I think that
often the case.
Yes, and I think that it's just nice to see that exactly like you said, he's coming out at this moment in time. It's all coming up roses for him, and it's brilliant because he deserves it. He does, because
he's sat through. I'm going to take you through the DTV era. We're not going to talk about them because they're just bad. But I just listed some of the better ones. We got Dying of the Light, which I watched in advance of this podcast. Don't anyone ever watch that. The Runner, Pay the Ghost, Dog Eat Dog, Running with the Devil. Also watch that. Now, Dying of the Light is Schrader, by the way. Paul Schrader, like Taxi Driver Schrader. And
Paul Schrader did The Hills. Come on.
Okay, well, it's The Hills Schrader. I watched Running with the Devil, which is Cage and Lawrence Fishburne. Don't ever watch that. Basically, skip all of these. I reviewed USS Indianapolis. Don't watch that. Just listen to Quint's story from Jaws again. Save you a lot of time, and you get to watch a classic film. It's
true, but you're missing two off the list there, Kaz, aren't you?
I come into the last two, which is Mark is going to defend Mum and Dad.
As if it needs any so we had that rash, didn't we, sort of starting in 2014 of horror films starring school kids, and we got Cooties, which was big fun with Elijah Wood, from kids turning into zombies because they ate an infected chicken nugget. Nice. It kind of culminated, I think, with Lupita Nyong'o in that Little Monsters thing, which is quite funny because you got very small children around a very sweary Australian, which is just fun, whichever way you look at it. But then slap bang in the middle, you had Mom and Dad, which actually I think was absolutely brilliant because, again, Cage and Selma Blair together, I thought, were a fantastic little double act. The plot switch around where all parents had a sudden burning desire to kill their own children, but only their own children, I thought was brilliant. And, talk about DTV royalty. You got Nicolas Cage fighting Lance Henriksen. I mean, the defense rests, my lord. It doesn't need anything more than that. Honestly, it is an excellent film because, again, Cage gets to go full gonzo in it because he's chasing his own kids, trying to throttle them, in his bombed out man cave in his house, and all of a sudden he starts having emotional angst about what he's doing, and it's Cage on a page. Where am I pulling these from? It's golden.
Your mind.
Golden. So yes, I think I have lodged a very robust defense of Mom and Dad there.
I'm not going to say for a second that Joe is a better movie, because it is.
Joe is a better movie.
Probably Mum and Dad is very entertaining, but out of them, probably, actually maybe a bit of both, got him into the next era.
Yeah, I think
Joe showed that he still had some acting chops, and maybe Mum and Dad still showed his wild side. Is the next era I've called Cage Unleashed, and in that we get Mandy and we get Color Out of Space, which the two of them put together is mental enough, and then we get Prisoners of the Ghostland, Willy's Wonderland, Pig, and I mean, he cameoed in Spider-Verse and was crazy in that. And then Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, where he gets to play all his best roles. I mean, it's been an insane ride, these last few films. And it's interesting to see we've reviewed the most out of these. I didn't actually put... we've actually reviewed all of his films.
Yeah, all of
Cage Unleashed period. It's nice to see him go mad. I mean, not everyone loves Mandy. It's great, but not everyone loves it. Not everyone got on board with Color Out of Space, and you can understand why. They're proper kind of throwback 80s, but made now.
Yeah, but again, though, I'd argue that Mandy is less a Nicolas Cage film than who's the director of that? The guy did Beyond the Black Rainbow. I can't remember. But I don't think Cage was the real star of Mandy. Yes, he got to go a bit gonzo with a chainsaw at the end.
He got a massive chainsaw.
But and the same with Colour Out of Space. You go and watch Colour Out of Space. The film is nuts. It's not a Gonzo Cage performance in Colour Out of Space.
No, he's reining it in
as much as he can.
Yes.
So again, I think, and I'll be fair, I haven't seen Prisoners of the Ghostland yet because I keep getting put off by some of the terrible reviews from trusted and learned critics whose opinion is well. A trusty Tom 4 means it's a must-watch in my book, but again, I'm liking that now he seems to have settled in, and he's been given the opportunities now to almost go back right to the very beginning with that eclectic genre mix. And he can do a celebrity cameo in a massive big kids animation film. He can do the insane Japanese gonzo slasher fest, or he can do something a little bit more subdued, like Pig, and it's good to see him almost going full circle back to where he started from, but with that weight of massive talent coming to bear on everything.
Like the way you brought that in there. It's interesting, in his AMA, he listed his personal favorite movies, and it showed a lot of self-awareness because he said obviously Vegas. I think he said Vegas, Bring Out the Dead, and Pig. Yeah. Which shows a massive self-awareness across some of the terrible films he's done.
I was going to say, let's be honest. If he'd picked The Wicker Man, we could pretty much adjust. Everyone would have logged off then, wouldn't we?
Didn't even make the list. The bees. But yes. But yeah, it's I mean, it's an interesting. I'm gonna leave it with one last comment, and appreciate this didn't show what a nice guy he was. Well, maybe it did, but it was the funniest question asked of him for me was someone asked him, "Good evening, Mr. Travolta," and said, have you ever regretted swapping your face with Nicolas Cage all those years back? And he just answered back with a ha ha ha. And you could tell he thought it was very funny. I thought that was the best of all the questions.
Bravo, internet, bravo. Yes.